Welcome Capricorn to your March 2025 monthly forecast. Your ruler Saturn has been quite exacting over the last couple of years, but particularly around your mode of personal expression, your ideas, your interactions. You may have experienced some snags or frustrations around neighbours, siblings, technology, perhaps even a mode of transport. And this month, on the 12th, the Sun applies in its annual Saturn Cazimi. This only happens once a year when the Sun merges with Saturn and glows up Saturn. So Saturn and the Sun is an interesting Cazimi because obviously Saturn can be on the cool side. It can be about limitations. But if there is something that you're working on that requires a lot of thought, but also a lot of investment, of energy and commitment, that combination can be fascinating for you because it works its way around the lunar eclipse right at the heart of this month, which provides a backdrop for the next 6 months. And this lunar eclipse is all about ideas. Expressing yourself can be about travel as well. But as you come into this new month, the new moon, which occurred at the end of February, is still very powerful, and that merged in a right angle with Jupiter, the planet of growth, but also the traditional ruler of the sign of Pisces. So the potential to be very enthusiastic is very enriched at the start of March, not least that Mercury, the planet of communication, is in a mesmeric combination with Neptune and also the North Node. That means that your imagination, as well as your conviction and your assertion and hard work that comes from Saturn, can be heightened along with that new moon. So the mode of thought, the way you express yourself, very important indeed. So why isn't that going to be the only theme this month? Well, it is because Capricorn, on the 2nd, Venus, which is in your 4th house of Aries, which is very much to do with where you live, goes into retrograde. If you are not completely happy with your home as it is decoratively, you may decide with this retrograde to do something about it, and that could be getting out the colour charts, experimenting with different looks, perhaps hitting some vintage stores for some new furnishings, going on that famous online site to buy something at good value where you can reshape how things seem. But of course the 4th house isn't just about the physical structure, it is about how we feel. So family relationships can also be very much part of the process, not least because Mercury joins up with Venus on the 3rd. But Mercury in the 4th house is not its best location. We know that Mercury is detrimented in Pisces, but in the 4th house we can think, but we find it quite difficult maybe to output the emotion behind it. But they do combine very well in the early parts of this month. If you were wanting to get together with a family reunion or meet-up, maybe even a rapprochement if there have been some tensions, the potential's there, particularly by the 11th when they are exactly conjunct. But also Jupiter, the planet of fortune, links well with Venus too. You could be blessed by someone's generosity, maybe even an aunt or an uncle, or if your passion is for a pet, that can also bring some great joy at the start of this month too. But that brings us to the 12th, when the Sun reaches that exact combination with Saturn. And if there is something that you're not completely satisfied with, the lunar eclipse, which follows 2 days later, around how you feel heard. If you do have thoughts, for example, that you don't feel that people very close to you are so attuned to, that can be a point of frustration over the following 6 months. But the position of the moon is in the part of your chart in Virgo, which is to do with new experiences. So if you do feel a bit, locked in to an everyday reality, because the 3rd house is the everyday routine, that doesn't really work for you, I feel that some goats could be thinking about relocating, and that conversation or thought process around it can intensify from the 15th when Mercury goes retrograde. But if you are hoping to get more support or understanding from someone close to you, remember Mercury retrogrades can make communications challenging. The 20th, however, sees the vernal equinox, the start of the astrological year. The Sun returns to Aries, joining up with Venus, Mercury, and also Chiron. But this vernal equinox sees the Sun very close to the position of Venus in the retrograde. So over the following 13 weeks, if you do feel that your home life is a bit locked in, limited, you don't feel it's very stimulating, you don't like the neighbourhood you live in, for example, or you feel a job is too dull, you may be wanting to change something because you're wanting to change how it feels. And that actually is really great, because feeling is something that isn't fashionable. You know, the sciences are fashionable, and also because Pluto in your second house of money is linking to the vernal equinox and Venus, but particularly by the 23rd exactly, some kind of transformation about what you want in terms of your immediate emotional world or the foundations of your situation can start to play out. Ironically, Venus in its retrograde returns to Pisces on the 27th. Venus loves being in Pisces. If you didn't get heard the first time round, you can try again. Mercury's going to join her on the 30th. So something that you set your sights on at the start of this month, with that new moon energy pouring, cascading into this new month, in the square with Jupiter. It's very enthusiastic. The link between Mercury, Neptune and the North Node right at the start of this month. If you're still not getting the feeling, there may be more discussion to be had, and it could happen at the end of this month. But because of the solar eclipse on the 29th, the last in the series of Aries Libra, this one Aries, for the following half year, is very close to Neptune, even though that's still just in Pisces. So if you've perhaps thought, for example, about living by the seaside, or relocating somewhere that's very rural or peaceful, or you've wanted to create perhaps a space in your home that gives you some kind of real tranquility, all these Aries energies this month are kind of nudging that, but there needs to be a conversation about it. If it's nothing to do with that, if it's more to do with just not feeling very comfortable within yourself in terms of who you're having to connect to in your life, and you're not enjoying a job, a home, a personal relationship within the family, I think by the end of this month, as Mercury returns to Pisces, but Neptune steps forwards, it may be something that you have to really emotionally connect to in order to find the solution. So whilst the lunar eclipse is asking you to think about things, Saturn's suggesting that you shouldn't overthink it, and you shouldn't try to force any thoughts, and there could be some tense discussions with that lunar eclipse. But the solar eclipse, the vernal equinox, Venus and Mercury, whilst they're in Aries, despite the retrograde, are saying, tune into how it feels. It will guide you. Let your sixth sense get the upper hand. If you've yet to check out my new website, please go to www.patrickarundell.com. You can grab yourself my special offer of your combination reports, of your life roadmap report, the most important document anyone could ever read, that helps us to understand the patterns that are played out in our existence so far, but also your 12 months transit report as well. And there's 30% off. Each of these is totally unique to the person it's produced for. If you don't know your time, you can have my solar option. If you prefer to have whole sign, you can choose that. Or if you'd like to check out your draconic possibilities, your soul chart, you can also get any of those 30% off too. Please see the link below for more.